Now, Steve King is a white supremacist. We've talked about this before. He describes himself as a nationalist, but he said a lot of things that basically echoes white supremacist rhetoric. So now I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that he is absolutely a white supremacist and white nationalist. Now, he says in a recent New York Times interview, what's the big problem with that? I mean, white supremacist, white nationalist. In fact, I want to give you this quote here. Uh, he said, first of all, here's some context. He said he doesn't mind that the American population includes a range of races. Oh, well, how magnanimous of him. He doesn't actually mind if other races share in America, if they actually live here. How nice of you. But of course, he wants to make sure that the culture stays both white and European. You know what's funny, like about that? I want the culture to stay European. Okay, which part of Europe? I mean, we've got Norway, Denmark, we've got the UK. Oh, you know what's part of that culture? Healthy, safe social safety nets that are actually very strong. Yeah, I love that part of white culture. I love that European culture right there. Let's get us some European culture here with free single payer healthcare and free college. Yeah, let's do that. That's great. Is that what you're advocating for, Steve King? No, of course not. No, the part that he's advocating for is lack of brown people, of course. But anyway, let me get to his quote here. He says, white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization. How did that language become offensive? Why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization? There's actually two different questions here. And let me answer that second one first. So why are we learning that about this in our history class? Well, first of all, Steve King is ancient, right? And so back then when they had history class, what it was is that, and look, I experienced this too when I went through history class in high school. It turns out that they kind of leave out the bad parts. Like, for example, in high school, I didn't learn about the Trail of Tears. We didn't learn about any of that stuff. We didn't learn about how our government experimented on the Tuskegee Airmen, or how there was rampant racism during World War I and World War II, even though that black people served as soldiers right alongside white people, and they served, our country incredibly admirably and were super, super brave. They still dealt with massive racism. And so that's the stuff that we didn't learn about in high school and in history class. And the other part of that, of course, is look, history is written by the victors, right? So, look, let's be honest, white people, we've been victors a lot because we would come in and basically invade and fucking destroy everything. That's not a great legacy. Let's be honest about that. Colonialism, imperialism is not a good legacy. That's not something to be proud of. That's actually something to look back on and be ashamed of. And so it's like, oh man, I really wish we hadn't, driven native peoples off their lands and raped and killed them and destroyed their cultures and things like that. But, Steve King looks at that and goes, no, that's actually fantastic. That's great. That shows that we're superior because we're white. What's the problem? What? White supremacy? What? I don't see a problem with that. Look, again, people like King don't understand why being white supremacist is a bad thing. And to that, I mean, you can't really answer that because the thing is like, if you don't understand why that's a bad thing, then honestly, I don't think there's any getting through to you. I just don't think there's any way to get through to people like that. I mean, they literally think that they're superior to everyone who is not white. Doesn't matter what you did. Doesn't matter anything except that you're a white person. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't understand how people could believe that. But people like Steve King do. And Republicans, for the most part, they still mostly support him now, or at least at the very least, turn a blind eye to this. Now, there are notable exceptions. Recently, Ben Shapiro. Now, Ben Shapiro, I'm not going to give him a lot of credit here, but Shapiro was like, how is this guy still in the Republican Party? Maybe we should endorse his primary opponent, and that's what he did. So, at least Shapiro is one of the few voices on the right that's actually saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't accept people with these white supremacist views. So, there's that. But again, the rest of the Republican Party, who are not calling this out and not saying, wait a minute, we're not white supremacists. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell's wrong with you, Mr. King? We don't want that in our party. Well, look, I don't know what to do for you if you think that Steve King is a good person and that he represents your values. But for those of you who might not be familiar with King, let me refresh you on some of the stuff that he has said throughout the past. Now, Huffington Post put together an extensive list of things that he says and his beliefs. Now, they wrote that King is obsessed with demographics, right? Now, why would he be obsessed by the demographics? Well, because he wants to make sure that white people don't become a minority. Now, why is that? Why is he so concerned? Well, because he's concerned, or I'm saying he's concerned because the way we treated minorities historically in this country, he's afraid that once black people become a majority and white people become a minority, that they're going to treat us the same way that we treated them. So for him, he's like, oh my God, no, we can't be a minority. No, we have to continue to be the majority. And if Muslims are coming in here and Latinos, Latino immigrants are coming in here, well then, look, that imperils our white Christian majority. And so going to that rhetoric, he's actually found somebody, or quite a few people, that agree with him. One of them was Geert Wilders. Now, Geert Wilders is an Islamophobic Dutch politician. Now, he is basically advocated for anti-Muslim policies, including a ban on Muslim immigration, a ban on old mosques, and Qurans in the Netherlands. He looked at that guy, Steve King did, and said, oh, that's my guy. Geert, I'm with you. I agree 100%. King visited Wilders in the Netherlands, posing with a photo outside the U.S. Embassy, and then tweeted a photo of himself standing proudly with the Wilders, saying that cultural suicide by demographic transformation must end. Of course, afterwards, he defended that on CNN, and he said, we need to get our birth rates up or Europe will be entirely transformed. He not only said that, but also promoted Camp of the Saints. Now look, back in 2016, or I should say back right after, I think it was Trump winning the presidency, I did a story about the Camp of the Saints. Now that is that is probably one or if not the most racist novel ever created. And what it was is that it basically depicted black and brown immigrants as, savage, disgusting, horrible invaders coming for the West. In that book, and it was horrible. And you guys should go back and watch the video for all the details on that. And it was about Steve Bannon, because Steve Bannon was also somebody who's really touted that book, but now also, of course, Steve King also touted that. And it's absolutely disgusting. But if you get your views from that book, if you think that, oh no, that's great. Because another example in there is how the hero of the book is a guy who murders immigrants. That's the hero of this book. And Steve King's like, no, check that book out. It's great. I will recommend you read that. King also said that he didn't want Somali Muslims working in Iowa's meatpacking plants because he says that the only reason Muslims would want to handle pork is to send non-Muslims to hell, to make Allah happy. That's pretty twisted, man. No, you know the reason that they work in meatpacking plants? For one, that's meatpacking plants are actually very notorious for hiring immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants. But also, these undocumented immigrants or these Somali Muslims basically just need a job. And so if they can get a job at a meatpacking plant, that's what they're going to do. But no, Steve King thinks it's, oh no, we're trying to send non-Muslims to hell. That's insanity. Complete insanity. Not only that, but he's also promoted conspiracy theories. One of them specifically from InfoWars, that a Jerusalem imam told Muslims to go into Western Europe, build up your enclaves, breed their women, and do not associate or assimilate into the broader society. And of course, that led to the creation of so-called no-go zones in Europe, which have been 100% debunked. Not only that, as I said, he went after Muslims. He also went after Latinos as inherently criminal and threatening. Talked about cantaloupe calves as well. Oh, for every valedictorian, there's somebody going across the border with calves as a sign of cantaloupes for running drugs. Oh my God. So there's that. He also responded to a tweet showing a photo of young Latino boys detained at the border, separated from their families. He said, quote, young boys all old enough to be tried as adults or serve in the military are prime MS-13 gang material and certainly grew up in the culture of one of the top 10 most violent countries in the world. Well, look, you know how you stop those young boys from being recruited by MS-13? You make sure that they can grow up in a place that doesn't have MS-13. Let them into America. Because look, in Honduras and El Salvador, these places that have rampant gang violence and corruption, a lot of these people are forced into that gang at the threat of death. Join my gang or die. Why do you think so many people are fleeing from that area? I'm just saying. But of course, they don't want to understand that. Not only that, but King has also made false claims that over a quarter of violent crimes in the U.S. are committed by undocumented immigrants. It's not true. They actually commit less crimes. Then, of course, is referred to illegal immigration as a, quote, slow-motion terrorist attack in the United States and a slow-motion Holocaust. Holocaust. Damn, dude. Damn. Not only that, but compared immigrants to livestock, also immigrants to dogs, and has appeared on panels, in 2012 panels specifically at CPAC, with 3 white nationalists, Bob Vandervoort, John Derbyshire, and Peter Brunlow. So that's just a short history of Steve King's racism. And this guy is like, what? White nationalist? I mean, he identifies as a nationalist, but it's very clear that he is a white nationalist and white supremacist. Now, he's not quite a Nazi, right? But that mindset eventually leads to that kind of behavior. Leads to extreme, and look, these views are already extreme. But it leads to even more extreme views and possibly violence. And Steve King isn't advocating for genocide or anything, and let's be fair on that. But his ideology is both hateful and dangerous, and as I might add, deeply un-American. That's who Steve King is, and so he is a white supremacist. That is a bad thing, and so. If you think that, that's a good thing, then I think you've got a lot of problems. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.